At, if you don't like the way I live, then go ahead and leave. My husband, Stephen, said that right before walking out of the house to go out with his best friend, the one everyone at the company knew was his mistress. He had no idea. I was going to do exactly that very night. If you've ever stood in front of a moment that shifts the entire direction of your life, stay and listen to this story. And if it hits something in you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment so I know you're still here with me. The lasagna was still perfect. That's what I remember most about that night. The cheese had melted just right, the edges golden as if untouched. The scent of basil from the little pot on the porch still carried that stubborn summer smell, even though it was late October. I had timed everything perfectly, so the food would leave the oven exactly when Stephen usually came home for the past 8 years. The sound of his car pulling in. I didn't get up from the table. At the very least, I had learned that much. Rushing to the door, smiling wide, asking about his day with that almost pleading energy only annoyed him. "You suffocate me," he once said. So I sat still, my plate untouched, watching the steam rise from the lasagna dish. He walked in, laughing. I heard the laughter before I even saw him. That bright, sparkling laugh that once belonged only to my stupid jokes, to the nights that were just the two of us. Now it flowed freely, easily, for anyone except me. He was on the phone, of course. "No way," he said, his voice warm with delight. "Olivia, you're unbelievable." A pause. More laughter. "Yeah, see you in a bit." "Yeah, bye." He hung up just as he stepped into the kitchen. And for a split second, maybe not even half a second, the smile on his face froze when he saw me sitting there waiting. Like someone suddenly remembering a responsibility, something mildly irritating, like a dentist appointment or an oil change. "You cooked," he said. Not a question. Not exactly an accusation either, just an observation. Flat and cold. I nodded, gesturing lightly toward his plate. Still hot. Stephen set his bag on the counter, the easiest place to grab it again when he rushed out. He'd been doing that lately, keeping everything in a state of motion, always ready to disappear from this home. "I already ate," he said, pulling a soda from the fridge. "Olivia and I had a work dinner. That new place near the office." Olivia, his best friend, that cute label he used like giving it a nickname, was enough to make everything harmless. They worked at the downtown advertising agency, desks next to each other, brainstorming campaigns together, having lunch together, and now dinner too. "You could have texted," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'd learned that showing hurt only made me the dramatic one, the difficult one. "I did text you." He pulled out his phone, scrolling theatrically. "Huh, must have meant to. We were deep in that Jensen brainstorm." Time. That strange elastic concept that stretches endlessly when you're with someone you want, and snaps into nothing when you're with someone you vowed forever to. I looked at the food on the table. All that time, all that care. The grocery trip to get the fresh mozzarella he liked. The way I layered everything exactly the way his mother taught me back when she still talked to me. Before he told her something about our marriage that made every holiday meal short and suffocating. "It's fine, I'll put it away," I said, getting up. "Actually," Stephen said, and I recognized that tone instantly. The tone of informing, not discussing. "Actually, I'm heading out again tonight. New club opened last month. The whole team's going networking." "The team is going networking at a club?" I repeated, just to be sure. His chin lifted a little, defensive. "This is a big opportunity for the company, Laura. Some of us are still building our careers. Some people, unlike me, a librarian who got home at 4, whose biggest achievement that year was convincing the school board to approve a few new bookshelves." I heard the comparison, even if he didn't say it out loud. "What time will you be home?" The moment the question slipped out, I knew I'd made a mistake, the second it left my mouth. His eyes went cold. "I don't know. When networking is done, when I feel like it." He set the soda down harder than he needed to. Why do I have to ask your permission? Or report to you like some teenager with a curfew? I didn't mean it like that. Then what did you mean, Laura? Checking whether your husband comes home on time? Starting up those crazy thoughts again? The words hung between us like smoke. I felt the conversation sliding into that familiar, dangerous place, toward the cliff where one of us would say something that couldn't be taken back. Usually me. I was usually the one who went too far. The emotional one. The one who ruined things just by caring too much. I just made dinner, I said softly. Thought we'd eat together. Talk a little. Yes, that was me. A wife just trying to hold her marriage together. Stephen laughed, but there was no music left in it. See, that's exactly what you do. This needy, clingy thing. I work all day, trying to build something, and I come home to you sitting here like some sad ghost, cooking food I don't want, looking at me like I'm doing something wrong just because I have a life. I wasn't sitting in the dark, I said stupidly, completely missing the point, but my mind was scrambling for something to hold on to. You know what I mean. He grabbed his bag. I'm going to change. Party's in 20 minutes. He started up the stairs, then stopped, turned back. There was something on his face I had never seen before. Not anger, not annoyance, but colder than that. Finality. If you don't like the way I live, he said, each word slow, clear, sharp, then go ahead and leave. A CT2. Stephen, I tried to interrupt him, but he just stepped back once and then stepped forward again, as if he was about to soften, about to take back what he'd said. But no. His eyes were already hard like glass, firm like someone who had made up his mind. I mean it. I'm tired of this family, tired of feeling guilty just for living my own life. If you can't handle the fact that I have friends, a career, interests outside of you, then maybe you should be the one to leave. He turned and walked upstairs. I heard his footsteps on the wooden floor, the closet door opening, the bathroom door closing, the familiar sounds of someone getting ready to go out, not someone thinking about their marriage. There was a time I loved that little ritual, the way he tried on different shirts, the way he leaned close to the mirror to line his eyes, the small smile he'd make when he liked his hair. How long had it been since he'd done any of that, for me? I looked around the house, then at the dining table, where I had laid out the tablecloth, placed the nice plates, even set out 2 candles I never got the chance to light. Silence rushed in fast, so fast it felt like something tightened in my chest. Upstairs, the hairdryer turned on. Then music, the upbeat kind he always played whenever he was going somewhere better than home. I walked to the living room and sat on the sofa we had picked out together at the furniture store downtown. The sofa that surprised us both because we agreed on it instantly. The night it was delivered, we couldn't help laughing and hugging right on it. Where did those people go? Those people who couldn't keep their hands off each other for even a moment? My phone buzzed. A message from my sister. You're still helping me move tomorrow, right? I'd promised to help her move into her new apartment after the divorce. I'd listened to her for months, the slow unraveling, the fights, the breakup, the lawyers. I had given her advice, the kind that sounds supportive. Keep trying. Marriage takes work. You can't just give up. And now here I was, sitting here, completely helpless in my own marriage. The sound of shoes on the stairs. He appeared at the doorway, new fitted shirt, hair slicked back, expensive cologne I didn't even recognize anymore. How do I look? He asked. For a split second, it was like before, like my opinion still mattered. Good, I said honestly. Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or a memory. But it vanished, replaced by that bright, stiff smile. Thanks. Don't wait up. He paused at the door. And Laura, think carefully about what I said. Think really carefully about what you want, because I'm not changing. If you don't change... He didn't need to finish. The door closed. His footsteps down the path. The car door, the engine. Then silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind heavy with all the things I hadn't said, all the things I hadn't let myself feel. The house suddenly felt bigger, emptier, like it had already started practicing how to live without me. I thought about his words, If you don't like it, then leave. He always did that. The ultimatum meant to push the other person back, to assert control. But sometimes they backfire. Sometimes the person being cornered looks straight at the ultimatum and for the first time sees a door opening wide. My phone buzzed again. My sister. Are you okay? You usually reply fast. I looked at the message. Was I okay? No. I hadn't been okay for months, maybe years. I had compromised, understood, been patient. I had folded myself smaller and smaller, tried to take up less space in my own life, in my own marriage, tried to shrink myself to fit the tiny corner left in his ever-growing world. When had I become this? When had I started believing that loving someone meant disappearing? I stood up and went to the bedroom. His clothes were scattered across the bed, the ones he'd rejected while choosing what to wear to go out with Olivia. His expensive cologne still lingered, but it felt foreign. When had he switched scents? I opened my closet. My clothes hung neatly by color, by season. The shirts he bought that I never wore because they made me look too young, like the version of me he wanted to show off. The jackets I bought for myself that he said were old, plain, too much like the real me. I pulled out the suitcase. He said he'd come home when he felt like it, probably around 3 in the morning. The familiar pattern. Him coming home smelling like alcohol, like someone else's perfume, both wired and exhausted, ready to pick a fight if I was awake, irritated if I wasn't. I started with the essentials: clothes, shoes, books, the ones that were truly mine, not the ones he arranged on the shelf for aesthetic. My laptop, the watch my grandfather left me, a few photos from before I became an accessory in his life. The house was unusually quiet, just the sound of hangers sliding, the zipper closing, drawers shutting, the sounds of a life packing itself away. In the bathroom, while gathering my things, I saw his journal, the one he wrote in when he thought I was asleep. It was under a magazine on the bedside table, like a cruel invitation. I could read it. Part of me wanted to. Part of me needed to know what he truly thought, what he truly felt about me. But I didn't. That was the old Laura. The Laura who tried to understand everything, fix everything, be good enough by finding the perfect solution. The new Laura, the one forming in the quiet of this house, didn't need that anymore. I already knew enough. I brought the suitcase to the car. It was almost midnight when I finished. The house looked strange, not empty, just unfamiliar, like it was already beginning to erase us. I opened a drawer and took out his favorite notebook, the one with thick paper that made his handwriting look nicer, and thought about what to write. The hurt, the nights waiting, the cutting words. But writing those things would only make him feel important, knowing he'd gotten to me. He didn't deserve that. I wrote, "You're right. I don't like it," so I left. I propped the note where he always put his bag, the place he'd see first. I did one last walk through, making sure I'd taken everything that truly belonged to me. At the door, I paused. This had once been our home. 8 years of trying, building, believing that loving enough would make it last. But I finally understood. One person alone cannot hold a marriage together. My car was packed. My phone was fully charged. I had nowhere specific to go. And strangely, that felt right. As if the uncertainty itself was part of leaving. I called Ashley. Her voice was soft, sleepy. "Laura? What's going on? Are you okay?" "I need a place to stay," I said, my voice cracking. "Just for tonight, or a few days." There was a quiet pause. Then Ashley answered without hesitation. "The door's unlocked. Come. I'll get a room ready for you." I drove away. In the rearview mirror, our house grew smaller until it disappeared behind the trees. The lights I left on still burned inside, like a stage abandoned mid-scene. All the love I had for him stayed in that house. Somewhere in the middle of downtown, Stephen was dancing, laughing, living the life he wanted, with exactly the person he wanted. Ashley's apartment smelled like cardboard and regret. Half-finished moving boxes from a move that never fully happened, Labels written in marker still clear. Plates? Fragile. Clothes? Books. I arrived at 1:30 a.m. Ashley opened the door in an old t-shirt and pajama pants, looked at me for 1 second, long enough to understand, then pulled me into a quick hug. No questions, no forced advice. She carried my suitcase upstairs, pointed to the room already made with sheets and pillows. "There's beer in the fridge," she said, "or coffee if you need to talk." "Beer," I said. We sat in the unfinished living room, drinking in silence until almost 3, when I finally said, "He told me if I didn't like how he lived, I could go." Ashley nodded, not shocked, just exhaled. "And you really went?" "I really went." She smiled, not exactly happy, more like recognition, the way people smile when they've survived the same kind of loss. "Welcome to single life." I laughed too, trying to drink enough to feel numb, to forget. "I keep thinking about last Tuesday," I said. "I came home early, and he was there. Rare. He was on the phone in the bedroom. I heard him laugh, and for 1 second, I thought he was laughing with me. Thought he heard the door and was excited to tell me something funny. But he wasn't. It was Olivia. When he walked out and saw me, his face just annoyed. Not guilty, not caught. Just annoyed that I came home. That's when I knew. I tightened my grip on the beer bottle. Anger can be fixed. Hurt can be healed. But when your existence irritates someone, when being in your own home feels like you're intruding, that's when it's really over. Morning came, Sunday. Pale autumn light filtered through Ashley's curtainless window. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the phone to ring. Because by now, Stephen had surely come home. He'd walked into the house and seen the empty closet, my things gone, and the note I left for him. By now, he had to know I really did it. The phone was face down on the nightstand. Silent. 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock. Nothing. I picked it up, checked the volume, checked whether I accidentally turned off notifications. No. The most recent message was still Ashley's from midnight. "Doors open." When Ashley walked out of her bedroom, her hair was messy in every direction. She looked at me, then at the phone in my hand, and exhaled. "He hasn't called." "No." Ashley went into the kitchen, started making coffee. That sound, normal, simple, echoed like it was just any quiet Sunday morning, not the first morning of a life I didn't recognize yet. "Or," Ashley said, pouring coffee into 2 mugs, "maybe he's not going to call at all." "Do you know when my ex finally contacted me again?" "When?" 3 days later, to ask why his favorite dress shirt wasn't washed. She handed me the mug. Not to ask if I was okay, not where I went, just why his damn shirt wasn't clean. We sat there drinking in silence. Outside, the city was waking up. Car doors closing, church bells echoing. The familiar but peaceful sounds of people living normal lives on a normal Sunday morning. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "The divorce?" Ashley thought, really thought, something I'd always loved about her. "I regret that love had to end like that," she said slowly. "But the divorce? No." I looked down at the phone in my hand. The screen was black. No missed calls, no messages, no sign at all from the man who once said he loved me, the man who just last night said the words that ended our marriage. A CT4. She looked at me over the rim of her glass, her eyes serious but gentle. "You know what the worst part is?" she said. "It's not the big fights, not even the cheating. It's the small things. The way he sighs when you walk into the room, like your existence is a burden. The way he makes plans alone, and then acts like you're controlling when you ask a normal question. And the way you start apologizing, just because you still want to hold on, to save a marriage that's already fallen apart." I understood. God, I understood so deeply it hurt in my bones. My phone buzzed. We both looked down. My heart sprinted and stopped all at once. I picked it up. It was Stephen, not calling, a text. "Really, Laura? Seriously?" I stared at those words. Not come home. Not let's talk. Not I'm sorry or I miss you. The things I both feared and hoped for. Just, really? As if I was the unreasonable one. As if I was the one breaking the rules. Ashley asked, "What did he say?" I handed her the screen. She let out a sharp, sour laugh. Oh God, it's exactly the same. Men like this really read from the same manual. Another message popped up almost immediately. God, Laura, you're overreacting. Just because I went out for a bit, had friends, I seriously can't believe you. Then another. I'm calling Mom. She needs to know you ran out of the house in the middle of the night. Then another. You won't even talk. You won't try. You can't act like an adult. All you do is run. I watched them appear one by one and felt something strange yet familiar. Something I should have seen clearly long ago. I expected guilt. Expected my heart to pull me back. Expected to feel unreasonable, impulsive. But I didn't. Instead, I felt clarity. Because in those messages, my entire marriage appeared, distilled into a few angry sentences. Everything was my fault. I was the dramatic one. I was the problem. He erased the fact that he told me to go. Erased the months he'd chosen another woman over me. Erased the nights I begged him to talk while he shut every door. In his version of the story, I had always been the one causing trouble. The phone rang. Stephen's name lit up the screen. Ashley raised an eyebrow. You gonna pick up? I thought about it. Thought about hearing his voice and the fight that would follow. I knew him well enough to know he'd be angry, defensive, righteous. I'd try to explain. He'd cut me off. I'd hold it in. He'd say I was disrespectful. The same loop over and over. Or I could choose something else. I declined the call. A new text came instantly. Pick up, we need to talk. Then, fine, be childish, but you cannot take the car. It's under both our names. The car. Of course. We had officially moved from emotions to property, to possession, to who owned what. I typed a reply, then erased it. There was no version of a response that wouldn't drag me into another endless fight, another emotional chess match we'd played 100 times. Finally, I wrote only, I need time. Please respect that. He replied instantly, Time? You walked out. You don't get to demand respect. I placed the phone face down on the table. Ashley nodded. Good, don't answer anymore. It'll only pull you right back into the loop you just escaped. He wants to control the narrative. His mom will call, Don't pick up. Your mom will call, Definitely don't pick up. Despite everything being a mess, I still laughed. My mother, who always asked when she'd have grandkids, who adored Stephen like her own son, and would absolutely have many opinions. The phone buzzed again. Even face down, the screen lit up against the table. Ashley said, Turn it off, Laura. Just for today. Give yourself a little time. I knew she was right. I knew I needed to do it. I pressed the power button. The screen went black. Act 5. No more buzzing. No more waiting for the next message, the next call, the next accusation. Just silence. Done, Ashley said. Now let's get breakfast. We walked to a diner 3 blocks away. The kind with torn vinyl booths and a waitress who calls regulars by name. Ashley ordered pancakes. I ordered eggs, even though I knew I wouldn't be able to swallow a bite. The waitress topped off our coffee. On the wall-mounted TV, a football game played with no sound. Behind us, a family argued about pancakes versus waffles. Ordinary people, ordinary problems. Ashley ate. I just pushed the eggs around. Not exactly sad, not angry either, just floating. Like I'd held on to something too tightly for too long. And now that I'd let go, I didn't know where to put my hands. What do I do now? I asked. Now you find a place to live. Call a lawyer, take a few days off, handle the practical stuff. She pointed her fork at me. And you don't go back. No matter what he says, no matter how he twists it, you don't go back. What if he wants to fix it? I asked, trying to voice something I knew would never actually happen. Does he want to fix it? Or does he just want you back so everything can go back to the way it was? He gets 2 lives, 2 homes, and you just have to accept it? I couldn't answer. My phone was off, but I could still feel it burning in my pocket. I imagined it lighting up nonstop. Messages, voicemails, the fallout of a broken marriage. Stephen telling his version to his mother, my mother, friends, and definitely to Olivia. Poor Stephen married a woman who can't handle her husband having a career, having friends, and maybe that would become the truth in their eyes. But I knew my truth. I knew the nights I stayed awake waiting, the times I tried to talk and he brushed me off, the way I shrank myself piece by piece to keep the peace. I knew about his mistress and how much he resented me, yet still didn't want to leave the marriage. I need to find my own place, I said. I can't sleep at your place forever. The waitress dropped off the check. Ashley snatched it before I could reach. My treat. Welcome to divorce breakfast. First one's on me. We walked back through the Sunday streets. Joggers, dog walkers, families heading to lunch. Everyone seemed paired up, except us. It's funny, I said. Yesterday morning, I woke up a married woman. In my house, in my bed, thinking about making him the breakfast he likes. Thinking last night's fight would be the one to fix everything, and we'd go back to normal. I actually believed that. I laughed, but it hurt. 24 hours ago I was still trying. Still that idiot. And this version of you is better, Ashley said. The one who chooses herself, not the one waiting to be chosen. Back at the apartment, I sat on the sofa staring at my phone, still off. Ashley went to shower. The sound of running water was steady, ordinary, strangely comforting. I picked up my phone and turned it on. Instantly, it came alive. Buzzing, lighting up, exploding with notifications. 23 messages, 4 voicemails, 3 missed calls. I didn't open them, didn't listen, didn't read. I just watched the numbers climb and felt nothing, not empty, just light. Light because I didn't have to respond anymore. Light because I was here, in Ashley's messy apartment, and not trapped in a house full of everything except the one thing that mattered: love, respect. One message stood out, from an unknown number. This is Olivia. Stephen is very upset. Whatever is going on between you two, you should grow up and talk to him. No one deserves to be treated like that. I stared at it. Read it 3 times. Olivia, the woman my husband prioritized over his wife, was lecturing me about how to treat my husband. Something in me, the part that had bent and bent and bent for months, finally snapped. I didn't reply, didn't argue. But I took a screenshot, saved it into a new folder I named simply Remember. Because I would need to remember. When doubt crept in. When guilt tried to drag me back. When Stephen's version of the story started sounding louder than my own memory. I would need proof that this happened. Ashley came out of the bathroom, hair damp, and saw me holding the phone. You okay? I put it down. Yeah, I said. For the first time since last night, I think I actually am. Monday morning arrived like a freight train full of responsibilities I had forgotten existed. My 5:30 a.m. alarm went off, the time I used to wake up to make breakfast for Stephen before he went to work. For 3 foggy seconds, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw Ashley's moving boxes, the unfamiliar ceiling, and remembered. I unlocked my phone. My husband, who had sent 17 new messages from midnight to morning, was telling the whole world I abandoned him. I scrolled. Stephen's messages had shifted, from angry, wounded, strategically pitiful. The man who once bragged endlessly about his manhood, who flaunted another woman like a badge of honor, couldn't do the simplest thing, except that I had left. I didn't respond. Not just blocked on my phone, blocked entirely in my mind. The version of Laura who used to soften, who used to go back just to patch up things that were never hers to fix, was gone. But Stephen wasn't someone who gave up easily. When his messages went unanswered, he chose the lowest move. He called my mother. My mother, the gentlest person alive. the kind who softens her voice even when criticizing food, who always tries to see the best in everyone. He must have thought she would plead with me, beg me to give him another chance, guilt trip me into returning. But that night, my mother called me, half laughing, half baffled. He called me, asked me to tell you to talk to him, she said, shaking her head through the phone. And I told him this: if my daughter turned off your phone, then I'm sure you deserve that silence. And then I hung up. She was still laughing when she finished, but I just stood there, feeling something that felt a lot like being protected. My mother never speaks harshly to anyone, but today she chose my side, clearly, firmly, without hesitation. And for the first time, I felt I wasn't alone in leaving. That night, Stephen's lawyer called. I felt myself go numb, like my soul had slipped out of my body. He filed, I told Ashley. Stephen filed for divorce. Today. Ashley immediately opened her laptop, not waiting another minute, not hoping he'll come to his senses. He's declared war, and you need weapons. She dialed straight to her own attorney, Robert Murphy. I sat there, head hollow, trying to process what was happening. 2 days ago, I was still someone's wife. Not happy, but still a wife. Still thinking I'd try one last time. And now, forced into the role of the cruel one, erased from my own marriage's story, turned into the villain in the narrative of my own life. Robert answered, voice warm but sharp. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Bring every financial document you have: bank statements, taxes, mortgage papers, text, emails, anything that shows the timeline. And from now on, do not speak to Stephen directly. Everything goes through counsel, understood? I nodded mechanically. The next morning, Robert Murphy's office wasn't what I expected. No dark wood, no intimidating law books, just white walls, soft chairs, a desk with a laptop, and a photo of 2 golden retrievers. He stood when Ashley and I entered, offering his hand. Gray hair cut short, eyes sharp in the way that sees through lies. Laura, Ashley, sit. I sat, clutching the thick folder. I had stayed up half the night gathering everything: statements, taxes, the mortgage, screenshots of messages, the note I left on his windshield. Every artifact of a marriage in its death throes. Ashley gave me the basics, Robert said, opening his laptop. But I need to hear it from you. When did you realize the marriage had problems? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. When did it start? When Stephen kept coming home late. When he talked about Olivia more than he talked to me. When I felt like a tolerated lodger instead of a loved wife. Gradually, I said, like ice melting, slowly, until you look and realize it's all water now. Robert nodded. Tell me about the night you left. And I told him. The lasagna, the call with Olivia, Stephen getting dressed to go out, the ultimatum. If you don't like how I live, then leave. And you did? Yes. Did you respond in writing, text, email? I left a note. You're right, I don't like it, so I left. The corner of Robert's mouth lifted, almost a smile. Using his own words, smart. He typed a few lines. When did he file? Yesterday. His lawyer is Jennifer Hartfield. Robert's expression changed instantly. Sharper, more cautious. Jennifer's good, aggressive, likes to paint her clients as victims and the other side as emotional abusers. He looked directly at me. She will try to turn you into a monster, Laura. She will use your note as cold evidence. She will argue that blocking him was emotional cruelty. But he told me to leave. Do you have proof? Recording? Witness? No. Just the 2 of us. He leaned forward. Here's the plan. He filed for divorce, claiming abandonment and emotional harm. They'll go after the assets. They'll build a narrative that you're the cold wife who walked out without reason. My stomach tightened. Can she do that? She can try. Whether it works is a different matter. Robert pulled up a screen. But if we can prove infidelity or serious misconduct, the entire case tilts your way. Now, let's review the statements. I handed him the documents. He scanned each page, eyes narrowing. Interesting. A lot of cash withdrawals. $300 on February 15th, $500 on February 23rd, $400 on March 2nd. All Stephen. Then he pointed. Antonio's Restaurant, $385. Skyline Lounge, $720. Bellamy Hotel, $550. I swallowed. Bellamy is that expensive hotel downtown. So why would he? Robert cut himself off, leaning back. Laura, I need to ask plainly. Do you think your husband has been cheating? The word cheating floated like smoke. I'm not sure, I said. But in my mind, pieces slammed together. The late nights, Olivia, the time Ashley saw them at a restaurant, the hotel charges. Robert nodded. This matters. If there's an affair and we prove it, their entire case collapses. It shows a clear and justified reason for you leaving. He opened a form on his screen. I'll file a response to the divorce petition. We deny the cruelty allegations, request fair division of assets. Meanwhile, you gather everything you can. Statements, messages, witnesses. And don't go home yet. It's marital property. You have rights. But let things cool. He looked at me, eyes firm but compassionate. You don't want to destroy him, I get that. But he already started destroying you. Now it's time to defend yourself. After the meeting, Ashley and I sat in her car in the basement garage, neither of us bothering to start the engine. A hotel? I finally said. He used our joint account to pay for a hotel room, and I never noticed. I trusted him. I let out a bitter laugh. God, I'm so stupid. Ashley pressed the start button. No, that's called being decent. Decent people get used, not because they're dumb, but because they don't expect others to choose the worst option. How do you feel? She asked as we drove out of the garage. Like the whole marriage was a lie. I thought about the early years, when Stephen and I couldn't keep our hands off each other, when we stayed up all night talking about everything, when I believed we were building something real. No, I said. The beginning was real, but somewhere along the way, he changed, or I changed, or both of us did, and we didn't notice until we became two strangers living two completely different lives. When did it really start going wrong? 2 years ago, when he got promoted, managing the big accounts. That was also when Olivia joined the team. I looked out the window. He started mentioning her constantly, how smart she was, how creative she was, how she understood his vision better than anyone. I thought I was being paranoid for feeling jealous. Turns out I was just paying attention. Ashley said, Bank first. Remove Stephen's access to the joint account. Leave enough for his expenses this month. Move the rest into an account under your name only. He's already 3 steps ahead. Filing, playing the victim online. You need to catch up. This isn't cruelty, it's survival. Back at the apartment, I couldn't sleep. Lying on her sofa, staring at the ceiling, I kept thinking about that hotel charge. What room? A suite? How long did he stay? Was Olivia there? The thought made me nauseous, but I couldn't avoid the truth anymore. I couldn't unsee the pattern Robert pointed out. Cash withdrawals, restaurants, late nights at work. I turned on my phone and did what I'd been avoiding. I looked up Olivia. LinkedIn came up first. Marketing director, same company as Stephen. Previously worked at a competitor. Joined his team 2 years ago. Exactly when everything started falling apart. I checked her Facebook. Mostly company events, professional posts, food photos. Then one picture from 3 weeks ago. A sunset from a rooftop bar, captioned, Sometimes the best ideas come after hours. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, Stephen. His hair, the tie I bought for client meetings. I took a screenshot and sent it to Robert Murphy. Found this. 5 minutes later, he replied, Good job, keep going. And I did. 2 straight hours like some amateur investigator. I combed through Olivia's Instagram, Steven's Facebook, every picture, every comment, matching their timestamps. At 1 a.m., I found something that made my spine go cold. Olivia had commented under a post Steven made 2 months ago. Good thing I have you to keep me awake. Thanks, partner. Partner. I screenshotted it and saved it under a folder called Evidence. By 2 a.m., I had an entire collection: photos, comments, restaurant check ins, all the nights Steven said he was working late, and charges from the hotel that lined up perfectly. A full week after Steven filed, I didn't receive a single signal from him. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive post online. As if he had disappeared into the shame he created for himself. But then came the knock. Late afternoon, the sky washed in soft purple-orange. I had just sat down with a cup of tea, the tiny ritual I'd started learning to give myself, when the pounding shattered the quiet. At first, I didn't want to open it. My instinct already knew exactly who it was. And when the door cracked open, I was right. Steven, but not the Steven I once knew. The man who used to walk into rooms with his chest puffed out now looked like he'd been dragged out of a pile of ashes. Greasy hair, wrinkled shirt, a coffee stain at the collar. Eyes sunken, drained of all light. The charm he once wielded had evaporated, replaced with the desperation of someone who'd lost everything. I was wrong, he said, voice breaking even as he tried to hold it steady. I stood there, one hand on the doorframe, watching him unravel piece by piece. I miss you. I never meant to hurt you. You know me, Laura. You know I raised my hand. My silence always scared him more than any words, and tonight I let it do the work. He faltered. I took a slow breath and said the sentence that had been sitting on my tongue since the night I walked out. You never regretted anything, I said, my voice steady, almost cold. You just wanted a maid who loved you. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I closed the door. The click of the lock wasn't angry, just a clear boundary being drawn. I leaned against the door for a moment, heart pounding, not from fear, but from relief. No fight, no explaining, just an ending that belonged to me. The next morning, I found a folded envelope on the doorstep, the edges dirty, like his hands had shaken while placing it there. I picked it up, hesitated, then opened it. 3 handwritten pages, messy, uneven. The first line was a grand apology, hollow as air. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was stupid. Then came the excuses. Work stress. Olivia was a moment of weakness. Then the blame. No one has ever stood by me like you. I don't know how to live without you. You can't leave me like this. I read it 3 times. He didn't apologize for the betrayal, or for using me. He only regretted being unmasked, losing control. I set the letter on the table, a small smile tugging at my mouth. He was wrong. If I could redo that night, I would still walk out, without a second of hesitation. I folded the letter and shoved it into the back of a drawer like something already rotting. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No tossing, no tears, just a steady, grounded peace. Because I finally understood. All that was left between us was his bitterness, and bitterness couldn't reach me anymore. But Steven wasn't done. 2 days later, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered, thinking it was work. The moment I heard his voice, my stomach tightened. You'll regret this, he growled. You think you can just leave me? Enjoy being alone forever, Laura. That's what you deserve. That was the real Steven. Not the man who once loved me, but a grown man throwing a tantrum over losing his favorite toy, furious because he lost his power. I didn't respond. I hung up and blocked the number. My hand didn't even shake. His words didn't hurt me. They only confirmed everything. And then, when everything was finally over, when the papers were signed, when the house was divided, when my name was no longer tied to his, I found myself standing in a new kind of quiet. Not the fearful quiet I used to live in, but the quiet of freedom, the quiet of a first breath after a very long storm. Those were the first days of living alone, when the December sunrise slipped through the curtains of the small apartment I rented. pale gold light falling onto the wooden floor I had cleaned myself, and I realized I had never truly lived in a space that was entirely mine until now. I started with small habits, the things Stephen once promised we'd do together, but never did, like going on walks, which he always said maybe on the weekend. And then the weekend would pass with him on the sofa, phone in hand, smiling at messages that weren't from me. In the mornings, I walked down streets covered in fallen yellow leaves, the autumn chill brushing against my skin, music in my ears. The soft ballads I once loved but had forgotten, because I always had to listen to whatever upbeat tracks he preferred. My steps felt lighter, no longer weighed down by waiting for a late night call or eating dinners alone. I stopped at the cafe on the corner, where sunlight streamed through the glass, warming the latte in my hands, and I sat there watching people pass by, realizing life was no longer about lonely nights waiting for him to come home, but about these moments, mine, completely mine, not needing anyone to witness or applaud them. Stephen now was no longer pain. He was a lesson in how small I once made myself to fit inside his world, a lesson in how I mistook his silence for peace, and a lesson in how powerful it can be to walk away, to turn off a light that no longer illuminated my life. He made me stronger, not through love, but through the betrayal that pushed me to my limit. And from that limit, I learned to stand up, to love myself before loving anyone else. My new life was strangely gentle. Sunlight spilling through windows, I opened myself, music playing whenever I wanted. No longer afraid of silence, because silence had become a friend, a space I could fill with calls to people who truly cared, people who listened without judgment, people who held me without asking for anything in return. No more nights lying awake wondering what I did wrong. Instead, deep sleep, waking up with a sense of freedom, like a bird finally out of its cage, flying without fear of falling. I saw myself becoming someone new, stronger, more independent, free of the emotional weight that once pressed down on me, free of empty promises, free of nights spent waiting, free of the fear of being abandoned because now I was the one who chose to leave, and in that choosing I found myself, whole and bright. Some lights, once turned off, are never meant to be switched back on, because sometimes darkness is necessary for us to see our own true light. Some women, once they walk away, never look back, because ahead is a path they carve for themselves, no longer defined by anyone else. And if my story touches you, if it reminds you of the dinners you waited alone for, the nights you lay awake by yourself, subscribe to this channel to join me in sharing healing journeys, lessons born from pain, and share your story in the comments, because sometimes telling it is how we begin to turn the lights back on. Some doors, when they close, aren't meant to lock you in. They're meant to open up a new horizon where you are the one holding the key.